For these steps, we will be using parts B8, D46, D47, vinyl tubing A, vinyl tubing B, C29, C25, two 1.4 by 4 millimeter screws, and one 1.4 by 10 millimeter screw. All right, guys, welcome back to the bench. Today, we are going to do two steps in one video because step number 10 and step number 11 consist of so few parts that it would be smart just to combine steps, since one of the steps is literally just attaching the rear wheel with these screws. So we are going to start with step 10, and we're going to cut out part D46, D47, B8, and then we'll also be using some little rubber tubing to replicate the brake cables and things like that. So we'll be using those in this step. Plus we'll need parts C29 and C25. So yeah, not a lot, but trying to combine two steps so that way we can move on to the next. So I'm going to start grabbing some parts. We're going to grab the C sprue and we're just going to clip this off. I'm just going to put it right there and clean it up here in a minute. We're going to need sprue D as in David. And we are going to grab D47 and D46, which are these two right here. And then we also need part B8 and C25. So we'll grab our C sprue again. We'll grab C25. And grab the B sprue. And grab part number B8. And like normal, we'll clean them up from all these little nubs. I like these sanders because they're rough on one side, so you can knock out some good plastic, and then they're smooth on the other, so you can polish it up back to smoothness. So when you get it to paint, you don't have a lot of scratches. Part's done. Can't get the clippers in on that one, so I'll just knock that off with a little bit. My scalpel blade. Make sure it's nice and smooth. Get this one too. Make sure I don't cut my finger, which I've done in the past. I'm operating with an eye and a half right now because last weekend, this is Monday, no, this is Tuesday. On Sunday, my dog and I were roughhousing and she gouged my left eye with her paw and her claws. So I had to go see some doctors and make sure everything's good to go. So it should heal, but it's still causing a little bit of double vision. So if I screw up, I have an excuse. Okay, those are all wrapped up. The painting for these parts, we will be doing the little part that attaches to the frame or the swing arm. That's going to be LP5 semi-gloss black. The little parts for the brakes are going to be a mixture of LP72, LP71, some chrome, and some semi-gloss black as well, which those will most likely just be brush painted. But these here I will airbrush as far as this piece here. And then we attach the tubing, and we have this part that doesn't get painted because it's covered by this cap, which has to be LP70 and X31. So I'm going to go gather all of these paints. We're also going to have to put a decal on the center of this hub as well. So we could do a lot of stuff, from tubing to gluing to painting to decaling, all in one step. Kind of fun. All right, I'm going to go grab some paints, and I'll see you guys in a minute. All right, I was noticing in the directions before I get ready to paint that this little part right here is the same color as this piece that's already on this part. So I'm going to glue this to that, paint the whole thing LP72, then mask off that section and paint those two things LP71. So it's all as one unit when I paint it. That might make it easier to paint. So we're just going to take this little piece right here, give ourselves a little bit of glue, take this, orientation is up, put the pegs in the holes, and let it align. You're going to have a gap. I don't know if you can see it. You're going to have a gap between the pieces, so you're only really gluing down the bottom part of that. So that is so when you attach the rear wheel later on, like this, that will fit inside your disc brake. So I am going to go shoot some parts. I'm going to shoot this part LP70 and this part LP72, this part nothing, and this part LP5, which is semi-gloss black. So I shall see you in a blink. All right, so what I've done, because I messed the last part up, I have painted this Tamiya LP5, which is a semi-gloss black. Came out very smooth, so all I'm going to have to do is touch the bolts, grab those as a little chrome silver, and that'll be ready to attach. This part here was painted LP, I believe 70, which is a gloss aluminum. So that's done. All I have to do now is paint the center section. They call for X31, which is titanium gold in their acrylic line. So I went and grabbed LP62, which is LP, well, lacquer paint, and titanium gold. So I'm going to substitute and paint that And then I just have to paint this center section here on both sides. I have to paint that also a titanium gold. They call for a champagne gold. I've got to decide which one I want to use. I want it to be a little bit more gold, so I'm probably going to go with titanium gold. And then this part here, this little spout is going to be chrome silver, because that's also where the brake line attaches the tubing. So I am going to do some hand brushing instead of masking everything off. So here we go. Also, I'm going to give all of these parts a good wash with my wash once we're all done and dry. So that'll also help to make all these colors separate. All right, that looks good. Kind of separates that, all the little teeth. Now the bottom of this piece. I noticed when I clamped it down to paint it, it actually bent the joint, so it's not perfect. So I'm hoping it doesn't affect the way the disc brake sits inside of it. Try not to goop too much paint so I lose too much detail. Usually I airbrush these areas so that way it's smoother, but this LP paint goes down really well. So I'm going to come back and pick up all of these little bolt heads with a little chrome paint. All right, let all those pieces dry, and I'll get ready to do a wash and cut some tubing. So I'll clean this all up and be back in a short break. All right, everything is dry. I decided I'm not going to put a wash on it until it's all mated up with the other body parts. I'm also going to touch up all the bolts with chrome and semi-gloss black after that point as well. So the first part is to glue this little fender onto the swing arm. So I'm going to glue that on, and then I'm going to come down here. I've already glued this part onto here, so now I just have to glue it onto the swing arm as well. And then we'll cut some tubing and get those going. So this little part for the swing arm, this little fender. On the bottom of it, you have two little pegs here and here. And those go in these two holes here and here. So I'm just going to align them. And we're just going to, guess what we're going to do? Put a dollop of glue here and in here. And we're going to just grab this bad boy, put it in there and in there. Let's hold that for a minute. It's not right. So, what you have now is your fender, but we're also going to grab those bolts here, here, and here, and pick those out with a little bit of chrome silver here in a minute. So that part, we'll let that dry. We'll just set it down, because now we've got to take this part here and we have to attach it to that area right there. I wish they'd give you a notch to kind of get that. Oh, they do. This peg here goes into this little hole right here, so that will line everything up. Too much glue. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit of glue in there, a little bit of glue around here. And then I'm gonna drop that right in place. Make sure the peg is in the hole, and that will glue just fine in there. Now you're noticing these little recesses in the mold. If this was a part that was going to be showing, I would fill those in and sand them smooth. But seeing that there's going to be a wheel here, there's no need, in my opinion, to go through all that work on something that won't be seen. You've got the age-old argument, well, I know what's there, and that's true, but it's a lot of work if you don't have to do it. So that is on. So now it says that we need some of the tubing. I've also painted the gold center of that hub. We still have this piece that's going to be used here in a minute. So that's off to the side. So tubing. Well, if my kids weren't screaming. All right. So with the motorcycle, you get this little spool of tubing. So we will cut that open. Making sure I don't cut my fingers or anything else. All right. And Tamiya also gives you a real handy measuring guide. So if you look at the top of this step, you have a 74 millimeters, so you can lay the tubing down at the beginning of here, stretch it out, and cut it right here, and it's the perfect size for A right here, which will go back through the brake line here and up through the chassis and then up to the front of the bike. and you need another piece, B, that is smaller, that will run from here down. So after these are installed, then I'll come back with some chrome paint and I'll pick up this little connector here and the bolts. But I've got to do that before I put the tire on. So I'm going to get the tubing cut. So you just take one end of the tubing, and you hold it here, stretch it. I always now hold it with my right hand and then hold it closer, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut right here, and then you have the perfect size for A. And we're going to do the same thing with B. I'm going to set it here, I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to hold it with this finger so I can get closer, and then I'm going to cut for B. So now I have both sizes for my tubing. So if we take A, if you look at the directions, A is going to come through, it shows it coming through part of the chassis, up underneath that fender that we just installed, and then down to this peg. So it's going to come through all right, it's going to come, if you look at this little hole right here, that little hole right there is this little hole right here. I don't know if you can see that right there. So the tubing is going to come in that hole, under, up and around, and connect to this peg right here. So we're just going to grab it, feed it through here. Sorry, I had to go get some tweezers. So you're just going to grab the end of that hose and feed it. I'm trying to get you so you can see it. Feed it onto this peg that's on the frame. And just kind of wiggle it. Wiggle it and push at the same time. And it will go on slowly but surely. Oh, then I just popped it right off. And just keep wiggling it slowly, pushing slowly, and you'll close the gap and seal it on there. And the rest of it will kind of air itself back out. So there, you can see the tube coming out and joining that little piece right there. Right there. So now the other part connects to the other end of that. And again, you're just going to try to get it on there, kind of wiggle it and push. Wiggle it and push. It goes on pretty easy. I say that, but it sure didn't. Now, I have found that when I build a bike like I'm going to build it for competition and I don't want it to be box stock. I've bought thinner vinyl tubing, and I've cut this kit vinyl tubing up to use as boots, and then the thinner tubing goes into the boots, and that gives it a more scale size, because sometimes this is a little thick as compared to a real scale one, in my opinion. Now, it may not be, but just in my opinion, it's just a little thick. So then the other end of this tube will go on to this part of the brake back here, if you can see that. So I'm just going to grab this one here, twist it, turn it, and a little bit of pressure. Try not to break anything else as I'm trying to put this on. Just kind of wiggling it and giving it pressure towards that joint. Trying to fill it. And then just kind of grip here and kind of plump it back up without pushing too hard. And that is on. So you have your very first part of tubing going in and out of there. So I'm going to now go grab some chrome paint and grab all my bolts here before I put this tire on here, because the tire's got to fit on there over the brake, and I don't want it to, I want to be able to see all my detail. So it'll be easier without the tire to fix all these little bolts. So I will grab me some more chrome paint. I also need to use a little semi-gloss black for the bolts on this side of the caliper here. So I'll get a little bit of chrome in here. And the only thing I don't like using this Maltiv chrome paint is it tends to take a little bit longer to dry. So I have to be real careful in handling the parts after I've painted them with this paint. But the overall effect, I just don't think can be beat. Maybe with some of the Model Master paints. Testers had a line of Model Masters, and their chrome paint, their chrome silver was really good. But finding it anymore is you know, good luck. I have a few bottles, but it's easier just to use this because I know what I'm going to get with this. The results are usually pretty good and pretty safe. I just dab until I get like a little bead. And then you can see it just kind of pops it out. One more little detail. And then we're going to come up here and try to pick out these right here. Calls these to be X11. Barely touching it. Just letting it set right on the top of the bolt. And then you get a nice chrome bolt, which looks the part. So, I don't see any on this side. So I now have to come back and grab these and make them black. But I also have to make where connector is, that's supposed to be chrome silver too. So I'll paint that all the way around. And I just got a hair in it, which is unfortunate. Just try to pick that out with some tweezers here in a minute. Okay. That's good, that's good. I'm gonna grab right there. I'm gonna grab right there. Because these two right by it are gonna be black. So that part's done. And I don't think this up here needs to be chrome. I'm going to refer back to my directions and see if that's supposed to be chrome. So that takes care of those parts. So those will now set to dry. And on this, we have some bolts. It also says to be, it doesn't say to make them chrome, but I'm going to. Just so that way when they're sitting there all in the back of that tire, it'll look like actual bolts. Anything you can do to kind of help with the illusion of depth is going to work. So that piece is on. So that's all the chrome that I'm going to need. So I'm going to grab me some LP black, well, LP5, which is semi-gloss black, and I'm going to grab those other bolts, and then I'm going to let that chrome dry a little bit before I try to mount this tire. And then we'll be ready for the next step. Be right back. All right, I am back. I got my LP5 semi-gloss black. Now again, sometimes the numbers on the instructions, if you're just beginning, it's telling you that it's telling you to paint those bolts X18, which is again their acrylic line semi-gloss black. So I'm just substituting X18 for LP5, which is the same color, but one is lacquer and one is acrylic. So we'll grab these little bolts right here. Not too much paint, dang it. Gotta be careful. Just want the tops. Okay. So I've got that side. Got that side. So we got the bolts now. Those are good. So need a quick little wash on there before we do our final assembly. And we might be able to get this wheel on tonight. We still got to put that one decal on too before we go too much further. But I may have made it difficult on myself because I believe that decal is actually on this part here that I just painted the chrome bolts. So it's calling for decal 46, which is Let me get my decals out. See what kind of decal we're dealing with. Decal 46 is that goes up to 42. All right, decal 46 is this red ring, which apparently, I don't know if I showed you, this red ring right here, and I believe it sits, on the outside of that area that we painted titanium gold. So I might be able to put it on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it out and try to put it on and see what we got. So I'm going to go get me some water in my little lid, and I'll be right. Well, I don't have to go anywhere because I have some water right here. So put a little water in there, and we'll move this out of the way. And I'm going to cut that decal out and see what we got. Interesting. All right, got that cut out. So now I'm going to try to do this because it says that it's going to basically sit right in there. So let's see how it works. I'm always up for an adventure. So we're going to put the decal in the water. I guess I could show you that, even though it's not the most exciting thing to watch a decal soak in water. But I do like the way this part's looking. So it's going to look even better with that little red decal floating around it. I think that's going to be really cool. I get amused and excited about the smallest things sometimes. Just came back from Chattanooga last weekend. Went up to the Went up to the Chattanooga Model Expo and competed on their Friday and Saturday show. So one of my motorcycles took Best of Automotive and Best of Motorcycle, which Best of Motorcycle wasn't too big of an award since mine was the only motorcycle there. But taking Best Automotive was kind of nice, unexpected, but still kind of nice. And then I just started figure painting probably last year, about this time last year. And so I took 3 of my figures up and they all took gold, which was kind of nice because I'm not that comfortable figure painting yet, but I need to keep practicing. So now we're going to try to work that decal down. It's supposed to be able to float. Maybe. it's supposed to go down. We are going to get some more water in there. I may have to get some solution that's going to make it a little bit more pliable. I don't want to tear it. So I'm just working it very slowly and not stretching it too much and pushing down. It's not working with me as well as I thought it would. So maybe if I just keep working it around this way, a little bit at a time, go around. All right. So it looks the part, but don't try to wash my brush out in cement. Get that brush done and clean. And saying that to close this up, we're not on to use the part that I am now putting on right here. So put the wheel on, which that disc brake has to slide into that little area there. And then we put that cap on and the screw. So I'm going to see if I can't get the tire on the way it's supposed to be. So I'm trying to figure out how it's going to go over that brake part. There we go. Since we didn't glue the brake part in, brake can slide down there. And then we put the tire back on. Then, now we got to find that screw. Hold that in place. And it tells us the screw that we need is a 1.6 by 7 millimeter black screw. So I'm going to grab these little bad boys over here. I'm going to grab one of the black screws that I think is right. Not going to make the mistake like I did last time. I'm going to measure it, and that is not right. So we are going to look in the other one, and then we're going to see, is that right? And that appears right. So that is the one we're going to use. So I'm going to go grab my screwdriver. And I'm going to grab a little Phillips. I think this one will work. Yep, that'll work just fine. So now it says to put in, before I put the screw in, it says, as I'm trying to hold all this, it says to put C29 through the hub first, but do not glue it. Then the screw, then the hubcap. So we're going to take our C29 that we had, we're going to drop it in the hole of the tire. We're going to take our screw, slide it down in the middle of that until we feel it bottom out. And we're going to start to screw, and hopefully we find some plastic for it to bite into. All right. Well, you're watching it live with me, so we're going to go through this. So whatever trouble I have, you may not have it, which would be a good thing. Okay, so that sits up on there. The hubcap is in there. The hub is in there. I'm going to drop you, C29 back in there. I'm going to take you, put that down in there, push a little bit. Hopefully it finds the hole. And just start tightening. And I believe we have a rim on a tire. So I'm going to tighten it just a little bit more. I'm going to hold the tire with my fingers and just kind of rest the palm of my hand against the swing arm so it doesn't move as much. I'm not going to over tighten. So I think that's as tight as I'm going to go. So we still have our cable all connected. We still have our bolts down there painted and protected. Still have a dusty tire, which I don't like, but that's okay. So now we can take that hub that we worked on and painted the chrome little bits. And technically, I guess I could have waited till now to do the chrome bits, because okay, so it is removed, and we're going to now drop that in there. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if it fits without glue first, because it may not fit all that well. I can see I've got some touch-ups down here because I mucked up the, you could probably see it, I mucked up the silver here and there, so I'm going to touch that up here in just a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and glue this down. Just going to touch right there, right there, right there, right there, right there. Now I'm going to grab this bad boy, put it right back in there. And now I'm going to do some touch-ups now that it's all part of the tire. And then we are going to attach this to the swing arm in the engine. So I am going to get my titanium gold back out. And I'm going to carefully touch the inside of that and get rid of all those boo-boos that I messed up with. I'm going to touch the top of the teeth where it kind of rubbed off some. Get all down inside there. So it's nice, pretty, and smooth. And then a little touch up to do with, I believe it was LP70, which is gloss aluminum. I put a little bit of acetone in a glass jar, and that cleans my brushes pretty good. It just keeps it handy, so I don't have to keep reaching for a big old thing of thinner. And it's cheaper if I buy a big old can of acetone and just disperse it that way. All right, I'm going to take a little gloss aluminum, and I'm going to be very careful because that decal is right by the boo-boo marks. So I'm just going to try to come in there, fill those scratches. My chrome still looks pretty good. Hopefully it looks that good after I get the tire attached. But the good thing is I can redo it once it's all attached. But so technically, I would end the video right now after I do my wash. But I'm going to do the wash after everything's assembled. Because that technically is step 10. But I'm going to, since step 11 is just basically attaching the tire and the swing arm to the frame with 1, 2, 3 screws, I'm going to include step 11 in this video, so that way we could start anew with step 12. So we are going to grab, I'm going to give that a little drying time, and we're going to grab our screws that we need, which is, let's see, what screws do we need this time? We need 2 silver 1x4 by 4 millimeter, one on each side, one here, one there. So I do believe, let's see how big these are. It could be these. I think those are, they're silver and they're the same width. So we need 2 of those. So 1, 2. And that covers that to that. But then we also need to attach this little swing down part that's on the main frame. We need to attach that with a 10 millimeter by 1.4 silver, which is probably this long beast right here. Yep, so that's the 3 screws we need right there. So that swing down part I was talking about is right here. That part is where that last big screw goes in. So we are going to take, and it says to make sure your wire stays over on that side and out of the way. So what we're going to do is going to connect it back on its little axis here right above just slides on at an angle. There we go. And that hub, that stays right there against that shaft, crankshaft, or whatever it is. I know you guys are probably going, what? This guy knows nothing about motorcycles. So I'm going to grab this screw, I'm going to drop it in here. And I'm going to make sure I'm connected. And I'm going to Find the hole. And I'm not finding the hole. Found the hole that time. You can feel it getting tight. So gotta make sure that's there, that's there. Before I tighten it anymore, I'm gonna grab the other screw and make sure it's in its hole. Looks lined up. Yeah, feel resistance. So I'm gonna grab and hold it tightly, which you notice I just broke off that. So I'm just gonna tighten. Again, not over tighten, but definitely tighten. Come back to this side. Tighten. Did our chrome bolts survive? No. We'll have to go back and touch those up a little bit more. Now, the long screw shows you putting this part here, the swing down part, up through that little slot. See the little slot back in there? So it tucks up in there, and now you have to try to get your screw between there from this side. Hopefully it goes through. So that screw goes through there to the other side. You gotta really be careful not to grip things too tight, because I was just gripping on the chain, which could have broke the chain, but it didn't. So now I've got to make sure that's attached. That's attached. My brake cable is still going good. It's where it needs to be. Everything's attached back here. So, with that being said, and we re-glue that back down. So we are done with step number 11. So we have a tire and a swing arm attached to the frame, and it is looking pretty good. It's looking the part. So, like I said, I'm gonna go back and just touch up a couple little bolts and let this sit by itself while other parts dry. And I will get you, yeah, I'm gonna have to glue that entirely back again. I will have it ready for us to start step 12 the next time we see each other. And I will have everything back the way it's supposed to be. So, again, hope your New Year's is starting as good as mine, and I hope your models are going well. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. I'm really enjoying doing it, and I'm glad some of you are enjoying it as well. So I'll see you for step 12. Thanks.